Verse 13, he gathers to himself the Ammonites and the Amalekites, and he went and defeated Israel, and they took possession of the city of palms. And the people of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. But let's take a look at what's happening here. Eglon is strengthened by the Lord. He doesn't recognize that, but he is strengthened by the Lord, and he gathers 2 other nations with him, and they defeat Israel. And they take over the city of palms. And the city of palms, if we remember from Judges 1:16, if you want to take a quick glance back there as we continue, the city of palms is mentioned when Moses' father-in-law's people, the Kenites, leave the city of palms and they join up with the tribe of Judah. And the tribe of Judah is the strongest tribe. They are in the heart of the nation. The reason why they could overtake this city so quickly is because it belongs to the tribe of Benjamin, and Benjamin at this point is the weakest tribe. Now, chronologers have placed a certain event right here at verse 13. And the story is from Judges 20. And this story in Judges 20, you can read it later. I'm going to give you a quick summary. You may or may not be familiar with this story, but it is the story of the Levite and his concubine or his wife who are spending the night in a town of Gibeah. And there's a mob that shows up at the door of the house that they're staying, and they're yelling to the homeowner, "Throw out that traveling man that we saw. Throw him out to us so that we can have our way with him." And the old man of the house says, "No, I can't do that." And the mob is insistent. They're persistent. They are wanting this man. They are so illicit and so sensual, so perverse in their thinking and in their lifestyle that they want this visiting man, this Levite. And in order to quiet the mob, the wife or the concubine of the Levite gets thrown out to the mob, where she is raped all night long, and in the morning she drags herself back to the doorstep of where her husband, the Levite, is staying, and she dies there. And now that story is disturbing, and we're going to get there in Judges chapter 20, but like I said, chronologers have placed that story right around verse 13 in Judges 3. Now, the reason why I bring that up is because Gibeah is in the tribe of Benjamin, and Israel takes up war at Gibeah with the tribe of Benjamin because of what happened to the Levite's concubine. And Judges 20 talks about how Israel reduces the tribe of Benjamin to 600 men, making it the weakest tribe. And so this is why the city of palms can easily be overtaken. And so verse 14, the people of Israel served Eglon, the king of Moab, 18 years. And to tie in the numbers here, notice this is much longer than in verse 8, when the people of Israel served Cushan 8 years. And God will oftentimes send a hardship to test you so that you'll turn to him. But if you don't learn that lesson in that hardship, he's going to send another hardship. And it's probably going to be a little bit more intense because you didn't learn it the first time. It would be wise of us if we would see that the hardships that we're going through, the challenges that we're facing, we see that maybe God's hand is still in it, and we turn to him and we trust him. Our hardship might start lessening, but instead, when we don't, when we rebel against that, when we push against that hardship, when we question God or doubt him or blame him, God sends another hardship, a little bit stronger, a little bit more intense, just like he did for the Israelites. Their first oppression was 8 years. Their second oppression was 18. This is kind of what God does. And so when we see that, we might want to be a little bit quicker to learn these lessons. And of course, God is gracious, and he can see when you're trying really hard to learn the lesson. He's kind. He's not just going to put you through it because you didn't get it the first time if you're really trying. In verse 15, then the people of Israel cried out to the Lord after 18 years, and the Lord raises up for them a deliverer, Ehud, the son of Gera, the Benjaminite, a left-handed man. Notice that this is a Benjaminite. He is from the tribe of Benjamin, who is the weakest tribe. And isn't this just like God, to raise up the next deliverer from the weakest tribe? God loves to promote those who are weak. That's what he does, so that no one can boast in their own strength and in their own work and in their own hand. God raises up the weak and makes him strong so that the glory and the victory ultimately belong to God. And so that's what's happening here. We see that Ehud is a left-handed man. Now, Benjamin signifies the son of the right hand, yet most of the men in the tribe of Benjamin were left-handed. And Ehud is left-handed, and we're going to see how that comes into the story in just a minute. So the people of Israel sent tribute by him, Ehud. He's been raised up as their next leader. So the people of Israel sent tribute by him to Eglon, the king of Moab. And Ehud made for himself a sword with two edges. Kind of reminds me of Hebrews 4:12, the word being like a double-edged sword. A cubit in length, about 18 inches, and he bound it on his right thigh under his clothes. Very strategic, because Eglon's attendants or guards would have been looking for a sword on the left thigh, because most people were right-handed, and so they would be pulling a sword from their left thigh. Well, Ehud has his sword on his right thigh because he is left-handed, and so he went undetected with this 18-inch sword or dagger because he's got a plan. It's a divine plan. Now, before we go further into Ehud's plan, we can assume that because God has raised up Ehud, that everything done in this story, the murder that we're about to read about, is because he's being led by God. Even when killing Eglon, we might call this murder. As a judge for Israel, Ehud is bringing forth the judgment of God upon Eglon as an enemy of God and his people. This is the way God delivered his justice and his vindication, was through deliverers. God is not an advocate of murder. In fact, if we remember Jesus in the garden before he's about to be arrested and the soldiers are coming to him, and what does Peter do? He pulls out his sword. He's about to take the soldier's head off. I believe he missed the soldier's head because Jesus might have shoved him out of the way, and instead he got his ear. Do you remember that story? And Jesus says, "Put away your sword." Basically, killing is not the solution. Don't kill in my name. We have to remember this is Old Testament. This is how God delivered his justice, through leaders, through people. He doesn't necessarily do that today. He doesn't ask people to kill anyone else. And if anyone claims that they heard a word from God to abuse people or to kill people in the name of God, they are liars, and they make God out to be a villain. That's not how God works today. So through the leadership and craftiness of Ehud, God's people choose to bring Eglon a gift. It's a gift that's over and above the required tribute. And so when we see in verse 17, and he presented the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab, this word presented would indicate that he is presenting the tribute with flattery, compliments, respect, and this was to ensure part of his plan. This was to ensure that no one would suspect what he was about to do. So if Ehud is coming in with all this flattery and a tribute above and beyond the required tribute, it was so that the attendants and his guards and Eglon himself wouldn't even suspect that Ehud was about to do what he was about to do. And now we see an interesting bit of information here. Now, Eglon was a very fat man. Eglon was a luxurious king. He had everything he wanted. Anything he saw, he wanted. And he got it, whether it was in his food, in his clothing, in his relaxation, in his dwelling places. He had everything he wanted. And when it says he's a fat man, it's implying that he is a very luxurious, overindulgent man. And we're going to see how that plays into the story in just a minute as well. And when Ehud had finished presenting the tribute, he sent away the people who carried the tribute. But he himself turned back at the idols near Gilgal and said, we're going to stop right there. Ehud has a plan. And most likely, they present the tribute over and above, and they all say, see you later. And they're on their way back home. And they get to Gilgal. And for Ehud to carry out his assignment from the Lord, he knew he needed to continue on his own. He didn't involve anyone else in what he was about to do. He didn't even speak about his plan with anyone else. And this ensured two things. And the two things that this ensured is the secrecy of the plan. So, when you start talking to a lot of people, not everyone knows how to keep their mouth shut at the right time. There's a risk that if he told too many people, that someone would have leaked this information to the king of Moab and his whole plan would have been foiled. It also ensured the safety of his men. Isn't this a great leader? He knows that if all of the men are involved in his killing of Eglon, what he's about to do, and they're all trying to escape, there's that one slow guy that just can't get away fast enough, and he would have been caught. And so to protect his men, Ehud knows he has to do it alone because it's a lot easier for one man to get away than a whole group of people to get away. And so he gets to these idols at Gilgal. And in Joshua chapter 4, we read about Joshua and the 12 elders that represent the 12 tribes when they're crossing the Jordan River. After they cross this river, they set up these 12 large stones, like a monument to the Lord, saying, "You have protected us, you have delivered us." Now it's likely that when Eglon takes over the city of Palms, he also sets up a giant monument. He doesn't take down the 12 stones. So it's likely that they get to Gilgal and there's the 12 stones of the Israelites, but there's also some idols from the Canaanites. And he gets to Gilgal and he tells his guys, "You guys go on ahead. I'm going to head back. I forgot something. I got to tell the king one more thing." And the group of guys are like, "All right, meet up with us later." So he turns back and he says, "I have a secret message for you." And this kind of tickles the ears of the king, right? He's so prideful, we know. He is overindulgent. He loves his luxuries. And when he hears that there might be a secret for him, this could be a benefit to him. And so he sends his attendants out. He sends his guards out. This was not uncommon for this king to do. His attendants were often told to give him privacy. And he was often in his chamber alone quite a bit, whether it was sleeping or eating or whatever else he was doing. And so Eglon commands silence, and all of his attendants went out from his presence. In verse 20, and Ehud came to him as he was sitting alone in his cool roof chamber. And Ehud said, "I have a message for you from God." Now he's thinking there's a secret message from God. And so this is really stirring his interest. This is stirring his pride. And what does he do? He arose from his seat. And this is when Ehud had to know that God was confirming his plan, because it would have been really hard to kill this king, this large man, while he was sitting. Eglon stands up to receive this message from God. And I'd just like to point out that even this heathen king stands in the presence of God. And it makes me think about all of our worship services when people are sitting. Now, I'm not trying to pass judgment if you are a sitter and not a stander, but I would like to encourage you, if you are a sitter, that you are coming into the presence of God, and He deserves our tribute. He deserves us standing in His presence out of respect, out of reverence, out of just saying, I'm going to give up a little bit of my comfort in sitting, and I'm going to stand. This is what Eglon does here.